So we were going to talk about the tiara.
Were we?
Yeah.
I thought it said no.
I know, but I just think it would look so fabulous if you
Yeah, but
did.
I've only got little tiny tiaras. They're not really worth it.
The meeting had been arranged to discuss jewelry, provenance, and the future of several royal heirlooms. No one expected a message from the dead, but when two senior jewelers placed a sealed inventory before William and confirmed that Diana had hidden personal letters inside a privately commissioned jewelry case, the room changed. Camilla stopped speaking. Charles lowered his eyes, and before the first envelope could be opened, the Queen Consort rose from her chair and walked out. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William entered the Windsor meeting expecting questions of ownership, not grief. Charles, Camilla, two jewelers, and the keeper of the royal collection sat beside him. That keeper protects royal objects. They gathered around a brooch, bracelet, and velvet case linked to Diana. Whoever controlled them could shape how her memory survived. The jeweler opened a workshop ledger. Diana had ordered a hidden compartment inside the case and placed letters there for William. She instructed that the packet remain concealed until her eldest son could understand why it existed. Provenance means the recorded history of an object's ownership and origin, but this case carried a mother's final intention. William placed one hand on the velvet lid and immediately froze. He had faced crowds, ceremonies, and loss, but this demanded something different. The future king vanished for a moment, leaving only a son staring at his mother's handwriting. Charles watched him carefully. The king said nothing. His silence felt heavier than confession. Camilla broke first. She asked why the letters had never appeared in the official inventory, the formal record of royal possessions. When the jeweler answered that Diana kept them outside palace channels, the Queen Consort moved her chair. She looked at Charles, then William, and said she would not remain while the past was used as a judgment. William reached for the envelope. Across its front, Diana had written, "For William, when the crown begins asking more of him than it gives." These were not farewell notes. They were warnings, preserved for the day duty began taking more than love could repair. Camilla stood before William broke the seal. She left her folder unopened and walked out without waiting for Charles. The door closed hard enough to silence everyone. William turned to his father and asked whether he had known Diana planned this message. Charles refused to answer. He requested a conversation before another envelope was opened. Camilla's departure stunned the room, but Charles's silence suggested the letters had not simply returned from the past. They had arrived at the exact moment someone had always feared. Three people stood at the heart of the discovery, but each was facing a different ghost. William saw the mother taken from him before she could explain the burdens waiting ahead. Charles saw a former wife whose voice had survived every attempt to contain the past. Camilla saw something even more threatening, private words capable of shaping the next king's judgment. The letters had not yet been read, yet they were already forcing each of them into emotional positions they could no longer hide. William had spent years dividing grief from duty. That discipline had protected him through ceremonies, speeches, and every public reminder of Diana. But these letters were not addressed to the Prince of Wales, the title given to the monarch's direct heir. They were written to a son his mother feared would one day be pushed to choose between the institution and his own conscience. Charles understood the danger immediately. Anything Diana wrote about marriage, succession, or royal pressure could alter both his reign and William's view of it. Succession means the order in which the crown passes from one sovereign to the next. If the king delayed the letters, he would look controlling. If he released them, he risked exposing decisions he had spent decades placing behind him. William followed his father into a private antechamber and closed the door. He pushed the inventory across the table and asked why a case carrying Diana's personal instructions had remained sealed for so long. His voice stayed calm, but the prince demanded to know whether palace staff had been ordered not to touch it. Charles stared at the document. He offered no clear answer. Camilla stood alone in another room and removed her gloves. She dropped them onto a side table and told her aide she would not compete with a dead woman. Yet the Queen Consort's anger revealed the truth. She already felt trapped in that contest, and she feared Diana's private words might become a final judgment she could never answer. The jewelers then identified 3 envelopes. One was meant for William as a son. Another was for him as heir. The last was to be opened only if he believed the monarchy had lost its moral direction. Diana had not written a farewell. She had built a guide for different stages of his life. Then the ledger exposed something worse. A small silver key had originally rested beneath the letters. It was gone. Camilla sent word that she would return only after the envelopes were reviewed for references to her. William refused at once. The letters had divided them before they were read, but the missing key pointed to something darker. Someone had known about Diana's secret long before he entered that room. The mystery did not begin in the Windsor meeting. It began years earlier, during a private appointment that never appeared in the palace diary. Diana had entered a London jewellery workshop after closing time carrying a velvet case, several sheets of writing paper, and one uncompromising instruction. Nothing inside was to pass through royal hands. The craftsman who accepted the request understood that she was not hiding jewels from the monarchy. She was hiding a truth for her eldest son. Diana placed the case before Elias Harcourt and asked him to alter it without changing its outward appearance. The palace diary was the official record of royal appointments, while palace invoices tracked work paid for through royal channels. She wanted neither. Elias listened as she explained that William would one day hear polished accounts of the family's history, shaped by advisors, courtiers, and press secretaries. She wanted him to possess one version no institution could rewrite. The decision had been born at Balmoral. During a private dinner, 12-year-old William was asked to leave while senior royals discussed the damage caused by Diana's growing independence. Balmoral was the royal family's Scottish residence, often used for private gatherings beyond public view. The boy heard enough before the door closed. Later, his mother found him waiting alone, fighting tears after hearing their marriage described as a danger to the crown. William asked one question that changed everything. Would becoming king mean he had to stop defending the people he loved? Diana held him, reassured him, and waited until he left. Then she began the first letter. She understood that palace duty might one day teach her son to distrust his own heart, and silence would leave him defenseless against that lesson. Diana protected the message carefully. She placed a private family phrase inside every envelope and instructed Elias to record a distinctive fold pattern. Those details would allow William to prove the letters were genuine, if anyone later challenged them. Elias followed every instruction because he understood that the future king might one day need evidence more than comfort. The silver key carried an even darker purpose. Elias recorded in archive notes that it opened a narrow deposit box containing documents supporting the events Diana described. The letters offered guidance. The box held proof. Years after her death, an unidentified royal representative visited Elias and demanded to know whether she had left anything for William. He refused to answer, but the visit confirmed the fear Diana had anticipated. Someone inside palace circles already suspected the secret. Diana's plan had been born from one frightened question asked by her son at Balmoral, and now that same son was ready to confront those who may have spent years keeping her answer from him. Camilla returned to the room believing a compromise had been prepared. Instead, she found the letters exactly where she had left them, and William standing beside the table. Charles remained seated between them, unable to control what was about to happen. The Queen Consort repeated her demand for a private review. William did not raise his voice. He simply placed his hand over the envelopes and delivered the sentence that ended all negotiation. You do not get to read her words first. William watched Camilla enter with one aide behind her. He immediately asked every courtier to leave, and Charles allowed it. A courtier is a palace official who serves or advises the royal household. The jewelers remained near the doorway because the letters were now evidence, and someone had to protect the chain of custody showing where they had been found. Camilla refused to retreat. She argued that any document affecting the sovereign, the succession, or the royal family had to be assessed before it influenced William. The sovereign is the reigning king or queen, while succession is the legal order deciding who inherits the crown. Her words sounded institutional, but her urgency exposed something personal. She was afraid of what Diana had written. William answered without hesitation. His mother had written as a parent, not as a palace employee waiting for approval. When Camilla reached toward the inventory, he slid the envelopes away. The prince told her that nobody would edit Diana's voice before he heard it, and nobody would decide which parts of his mother he was permitted to remember. Camilla's restraint finally broke. She asked whether William had brought her back to witness the discovery or to watch her be humiliated. He replied that nobody had known the compartment existed, yet she had walked out before anyone mentioned her name, and that reaction had revealed more fear than any letter could. Charles lowered his head. Under pressure, the king admitted that Diana once told him she had prepared something for William if royal life ever began consuming his identity. He insisted he never knew where she placed it, but the confession confirmed that her plan had been real and that he had carried knowledge of it for years. William opened the envelope addressed to him as a son. He read in silence, then folded the page with deliberate care. Camilla asked whether Diana had written about her. He said yes. Then William added that the words were not what she expected. Camilla demanded to hear them. Charles looked toward his son, but the future king refused. He would read the remaining letters alone before deciding what either of them deserved to know. William had won control of Diana's words, but someone was already moving to claim the evidence. The letters belonged to William, but the machinery surrounding them belonged to the crown. Within hours, legal advisors debated ownership, archivists secured the jewelry case, and palace officials drafted language designed to make the discovery sound harmless. Yet the real power did not rest with the loudest advisor or the highest title. It rested with whoever held Diana's missing silver key. When William discovered who had taken it, the conflict stopped being a family disagreement and became deliberate concealment. William rejected the first palace proposal immediately. The keeper of the royal collection wanted the letters transferred into the royal archives until their ownership could be settled. The royal archives are the protected records where official monarchy documents are preserved and controlled. But Diana's written instructions named her son as the recipient. They did not invite institutional review, legal interpretation, or palace permission. Charles possessed the authority to order the case secured, but authority could not solve the moral problem. As sovereign, the reigning monarch with formal control over the royal household, he could stop the letters from leaving Windsor. Yet doing so would make the king appear to suppress a dead mother's final words to her son. He had power. What he lacked was innocence. Charles carried the jeweler's ledger into his study and read it alone. He traced the date of Diana's workshop visit with one finger, then removed his glasses and placed them beside the page. In a documented conversation recorded by his private secretary, he admitted that he remembered the week clearly. Their marriage had reached a point from which neither of them ever truly recovered. William discovered the restriction minutes later. Security officers had been told that the jewelry case could not leave Windsor without royal authorization. He confronted his father and asked one brutal question. Was the palace protecting Diana's letters for him, or protecting the monarchy from them? Charles answered that procedure had to be followed. The prince heard only delay. Then an archivist found the key. The silver object lay inside a sealed packet deposited years earlier by Charles's former private secretary. A brief note stated that it had been recovered from Diana's belongings before they were divided between her sons. The chain of custody record the written history showing who handled an item proved that a senior palace official had separated the key from the case after her death. Charles denied ordering it. William believed him, but that offered little comfort. The official had acted inside the king's household, under a culture that treated control as protection. William arranged to visit the London deposit facility that evening. Camilla learned of the journey and warned Charles that allowing him to go alone could destroy everything they had rebuilt. The crown could lock away a letter, but it could not erase a key, and by nightfall, William would discover exactly what Diana feared the palace might deny. By the next morning, the palace was no longer arguing over whether the letters existed. It was fighting over what they were allowed to change. William had opened the deposit box and returned with a thin document file pressed against his chest. Camilla refused breakfast with Charles. Senior aides canceled meetings without explanation. And behind closed doors, one terrifying realization spread through the royal household. Diana had preserved enough detail to make silence look less like discretion and more like a coordinated choice. William had used the silver key at a private deposit facility and found diary extracts, copied correspondence, and one final note. A deposit facility is a secure location where valuable documents and personal items are stored away from ordinary access. Diana's instruction was simple: understand before acting, and release nothing in anger. The file was not designed as a weapon. It was meant to stop her son from being manipulated by rage. Charles's communications team moved quickly. They drafted a statement calling the discovery a private family matter, and suggested that the documents had long been known to the household. William blocked it. He argued that the wording erased the jeweler's confirmation and made concealment sound like routine care. The prince had waited too long for truth to be softened into procedure. Camilla sat alone while an untouched breakfast tray went cold. When Charles entered, she asked whether Diana had blamed her for destroying the marriage. The Queen Consort did not look at him. She wanted one answer, but the king said he had not read the file. Camilla turned away. She did not believe him. Charles told her he could not force William to surrender private letters from his mother. She answered that his restraint protected everyone except her. For years, she had endured comparison, hostility, and public judgment to remain beside him. Now the same past had returned, and the monarch was asking her to face it without protection. William carried the first letter to Catherine and read one passage aloud during a private conversation. Diana had warned him not to make Camilla the sole explanation for a marriage damaged by many failures. The Princess of Wales heard the deeper message immediately. Accountability was necessary. Hatred was not. The supporting file went further. Diana described advisors who treated private emotion as a danger to royal stability and encouraged silence whenever honesty threatened the image of control. Her warning was larger than one rival woman. It concerned an institution that often protected appearances before relationships. Camilla heard enough to understand the danger. She ordered her bags packed. Relief never came, because Diana's broader accusations still placed her inside the system being condemned. Camilla believed distance might protect her dignity. But before she could leave Windsor, William requested one private conversation, and neither of them would be allowed to hide behind Charles. There were no courtiers in the room, no advisors, no sovereign, no carefully drafted language. Only William and Camilla sat opposite one another with Diana's letter between them. For years, each had carried a different version of the same wound. He had seen her as part of the life that replaced his mother. She had seen him as the son whose grief could always reopen the judgment against her. Now Diana's own words were about to remove the protection of assumption from them both. William had asked Camilla to remain at Windsor before she left. He promised that their conversation would stay private unless they both later agreed otherwise. Windsor was not merely a royal residence in that moment. It became neutral ground, stripped of ceremony, where neither title nor rank could protect them from what Diana had written. Camilla agreed, but only barely. She sat upright, while William placed the open letter on the table and kept one hand beside it. He explained that his mother had written the page as guidance for her son, not as a final prosecution of the woman sitting opposite him. The Queen Consort prepared for condemnation anyway. William began to read. Diana warned him never to confuse the person who entered a broken situation with every force that had broken it. She did not excuse betrayal. She did not erase pain. But she insisted that hatred would chain her son forever, to the worst years of his parents' marriage. Camilla listened without interrupting. Then she admitted the truth in a private recorded conversation preserved by William's secretary. She had walked out because she expected the letters to reduce her entire life to one role: intruder. Her fear was not that Diana would be remembered. It was that William would read one page and decide she had never possessed any humanity at all. William continued. Diana's warning was also directed at him. She wrote that becoming king would tempt others to turn his grief into policy, punishment, and loyalty tests. The crown, the institution, and authority carried by the monarch could never be used to settle emotional debts belonging to a family. Camilla finally lowered her guard. She withdrew her demand to review the remaining letters and agreed that the case, silver key, and supporting papers should stay under William's personal control. The royal archives, the official store of monarchy records, would not absorb them. William then proposed a written protocol protecting private family correspondence from palace interference. Camilla agreed to join him and Charles, but she gave one warning. The public might learn about her walkout before anyone understood what followed. Inside the room, Diana's words had softened a conflict decades in the making. Outside it, the image of Camilla leaving had already escaped, and the country was preparing its own verdict. By sunrise, the private rupture had become a national spectacle. Britain did not see the letters, hear William's conversation, or witness Camilla's eventual concession. It saw one image: the Queen Consort leaving Windsor alone. Her face rigid as an aide hurried behind her, carrying an unopened folder. That single frame gave the public everything it needed: Diana, memory, guilt, succession, and unfinished grief. Yet the loudest assumptions were about to collide with a truth far more complicated than revenge. Broadcasters led with confirmation that Diana had left private letters for William inside a hidden jewellery compartment. Palace correspondents called Camilla's departure the sharpest collision between the two women's legacies in years. A palace correspondent is a journalist assigned to report closely on the royal family, and every word now carried weight because the story touched both the present queen and the future king. Charles authorized a statement before the morning bulletins ended. It confirmed that personal correspondence had been delivered to its intended recipient and declared that William alone would decide whether anything became public. The king refused to publish the letters because releasing them without his son's consent would repeat the very control Diana had feared. Privacy, in this moment, was not silence. It was ownership. William watched the coverage at Kensington Palace beside Catherine. Commentators asked whether he would choose Diana or the crown, as though love and duty could never exist together. The prince switched off the television and told his wife that the framing proved his mother's warning. People still wanted private grief turned into opposing camps. Catherine answered that he could either feed that conflict or end it. Camilla faced a harsher judgment. Newspapers described her walkout as guilt, fear, and rejection of Diana's voice. She told Charles that she could not erase the image. The Queen Consort could only decide whether her next action confirmed everything people believed about her. One front page captured the national mood. The fictional morning edition of the London Chronicle printed Camilla's departure beneath the headline, Diana's Last Words, and the Queen Who Could Not Stay. Outside Kensington Palace, a small crowd gathered with white roses. One handwritten card carried a simple demand: let her son hear her. Camilla refused to hide. Hours later, she joined Charles at a scheduled engagement and faced the question directly. In a recorded exchange with assembled reporters, she said a son had the right to his mother's words and that she would not stand between them. The king remained beside her. Knowing the answer changed the story. William heard the statement and called Charles. He would release one sentence from Diana, not to expose the family, but to stop her message becoming another battle between two women. The world expected a final accusation. William chose a sentence that placed the burden on the future monarch himself. William could have used the letters to reopen every wound. He could have exposed private failures, humiliated those who feared Diana's voice, and allowed the nation to treat grief as a final trial. He chose something harder. Standing with Charles and Camilla after days of division, he released one sentence from his mother: "Do not inherit our bitterness with your crown." In that moment, the hidden letters stopped being evidence in an old war. They became instructions for ending it. William secured that meaning through a formal family agreement. The document confirmed that the letters, jewelry case, silver key, and supporting file belonged to him personally. A formal family agreement is a written arrangement accepted by those involved, giving clear control over private property and decisions. No copy could be created, archived, or examined without the prince's written permission. The palace could never take possession of Diana's final message again. Charles accepted a harder truth. During a documented meeting with his son, the king acknowledged that former advisors had separated the key from the case under his household's authority. No evidence proved he ordered it, but the concealment still happened around him. He signed a new protocol, a binding set of rules for future handling, preventing private correspondence from becoming institutional property, simply because it concerned the monarchy. William opened the final envelope alone. Diana had intended it for the day he questioned the monarchy's moral direction. She reminded him that the crown held value only when it protected the humanity of those serving beneath it. He folded the page, held it against his chest, and finally allowed himself to grieve without turning that grief into anger. Camilla then faced him without defense. She apologized for walking out and admitted that fear had mattered more to her than his right to receive his mother's words. William did not pretend the past had vanished. He accepted her apology because she had returned, abandoned her demand for control, and publicly defended his ownership of the letters. Diana had never commanded revenge. She urged her son to recognize betrayal honestly, resist palace manipulation, and refuse to let inherited pain shape how he judged others. Her words challenged Charles, Camilla, and William, but they condemned none of them to remain prisoners of the past. Charles left first, humbled by the cost of silence. Camilla placed the inventory beside William and followed. He closed the velvet case himself, not to bury Diana's voice, but because it was finally safe with the son she had chosen to guide. Camilla's walkout exposed fear. Charles's hesitation exposed control. William's decision revealed a stronger monarchy, one willing to hear painful truth without becoming ruled by it. Diana's letters did not destroy the crown. They gave its future king permission to make it human. The case closed, and the past would never again govern them in silence. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.